So how would I rate Manchester United's transfer window this summer? Well, from Rúben Amorim's point of view, if a C is a pass, then it's got to be a D, because if he continues to want to play the exact same way, which it seems like he wants to do, specifically using that disjointed 5-2-3 pressing shape, then his success this season was always going to be relying on bringing in a unicorn of a ball winner. Now don't get me wrong, that's no excuse. He should be at least getting top 5, bare minimum. Ideally, if we're saying he's an elite level coach, I'm saying top 4, which is definitely the expectations we should be setting, considering we're only playing once a week until the FA Cup and we've got no European football, a massive advantage compared to the likes of Newcastle, Aston Villa, Chelsea and Tottenham. The options he has available in central midfield could still play in that midfield double pivot. He literally just needs to instruct one of the interior forwards in the front line to tuck in narrow and drop deeper alongside the midfield double pivot when appropriate in order to avoid overloads being created, whilst also giving the wide centre-backs greater licence to push high into the midfield line in order to man-to-man press any free players who look to drop into that central area in order to create overloads against our midfield double pivot. As I said at the start of the summer, it's really all or nothing with Rúben Amorim because of his refusal to make the necessary adjustments. Either you bring in 2 central midfielders who fit the profile athletically, physically, but also technically in possession, a goalkeeper which we have now got, and a left wing back alongside the new front 3. Or if you aren't able to sign that volume of players, you might as well just replace him with a coach who uses a system that does suit this set of players, or in a crazy idea, can maybe, I don't know, tactically adapt to the players. But despite what the awfully biased, agenda-pushing Manager FC fans tell you, we shouldn't be making signings that protect the manager's tactical flaws in the short term, but hinder our progression to the title in the long run. And so the real question is, how would I rate this transfer window from Manchester United's perspective? Well, that now raises 3 separate questions that need to be answered. Firstly, why do I think Kang-In Lee would have been a better alternative to Mbeumo? And it's not simply down to the stylistic profile, as I've talked about before. Secondly, who should have been the big money signing that we should have prioritised after Cunha instead of Mbeumo? Thirdly, how exactly is United's indecisiveness in the transfer window costing us, both financially and in terms of the reduction in individual quality in the squad? But before I get into that, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. They've got the new Manchester United releases for the upcoming season, with OK Jersey also allowing you to pick up high quality football shirts from just £15, plus free shipping across Europe for all orders over £45. They sent me over these new release alternative Manchester United jerseys from this season, as well as a long-sleeved retro home shirt from the 92-93 season with Cantona 7 on the back, alongside this Nuno Gomes Benfica shirt from the 97-98 season as well. If you use code ATLANTIS at checkout, you'll get a discount, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comments section below. So the worst part about this transfer window isn't even the fact that we've somehow managed to not strengthen the key area central midfield at all, but it's the fact that the people who were calling me a hater, saying I had an agenda, I wasn't being objective, for saying that we shouldn't be spending £65 million on Mbeumo after Cunha, specifically because we needed to save the budget for a central midfielder and a left wing back, are now going to be using the lack of arrivals in these positions as excuses for any poor results, blaming Dalot when he's being forced to play out of position at wing back on his weaker side, regardless of whether he's at fault in that particular game, as well as claiming that the reason that our midfield is completely played through consistently against any half decent opposition, like the morning after 7 pints and a Vindaloo, is not because our front 3 and back 5 are completely disjointed, leaving our central midfield double pivot completely isolated and overloaded. It's simply because we weren't able to sign Baleba for over £100 million. The lack of a central midfield signing is now going to be the go-to excuse, despite those same people not even maybe 3 months ago being incensed that I would have the audacity to say that maybe we shouldn't be paying over £60 million for someone like Mbeumo when we have the likes of Bruno Mount and Ahmad who could all play that role. Mbeumo's still a quality player, but I didn't think he was the right style of player for that right interior forward role anyway, with a playmaker like Kang-In Lee being a better fit not just for the balance of the system, but also Ahmad behind at right wing back, specifically because of his superior ability to drift infield and link play in congested areas or receive the ball between the lines before then looking to create, rather than Mbeumo's style of being superior when it comes to his movement in behind and being a goal scoring and creative threat when cutting inside onto his left. left, which Ahmad did routinely last season, but also Kang-In Lee was reportedly being valued at around £35 million by PSG when Napoli were interested at the start of the summer, which would have saved us around £30 million on the transfer fee alone, and probably another £3 million in salary each season, £15 million cheaper over the course of his 5-year contract compared with Mbeumo, working out PSR-wise as an extra £45 million. You can't simultaneously think that every signing is the best option and the next best thing since sliced bread, and call people haters and buyers for saying otherwise, or even saying that they aren't the best option on the market, and then months later start blaming the left wing back and central midfield positions that we couldn't strengthen because we blew the budget on those exact players that you wanted. But forget Baleba as an excuse, because realistically we were never going to sign him after spending £200 million net on Cunha, Sesko and Mbeumo. That was purely for Ineos to distract the loudest and most gullible parts of the online fan base, because in reality we never even seemed close to signing a central midfielder at all. The player we should have been targeting straight after Cunha instead of Mbeumo was Ederson at Atalanta. Considering no other club has come in for him this summer, we should have been able to negotiate a deal between £50 to £55 million fixed, probably with some performance-based add-ons on top. If you analyse Ederson's profile, he's clearly the closest player stylistically on the market to Baleba, and I would actually argue that whilst Baleba's potential is higher, on current ability because of their age profiles and the stages of their careers, Ederson's probably just as good overall. Baleba is definitely superior in the build-up phase, having greater press resistance and fluidity when turning out and driving out of the pressure, but Ederson is superior both statistically and from the eye test, higher up the pitch when it comes to creating, progressing the ball and breaking into shooting positions. As I've said to the point of boredom by now, Amorim's pressing shape in the middle and final thirds consistently leaves the midfield double pivot overloaded 3v2, with big spaces in behind and wide of them, demanding huge amounts of ground coverage and requiring the sort of acceleration over short distances when applying pressure vertically and pace over longer distances when shuttling wide horizontally, as well as chasing back on recovery, the only unique profiles of central midfielders such as Ederson and Baleba would have. It's not because Manu, Bruno, Ugarte or Casemiro aren't athletic or quick enough to play in the centre of midfield overall, it's because Amorim's pressing system in the Premier League would put most elite level central midfielders, if they didn't have that high level of athleticism and physicality, in problematic situations. But in truth, Baleba and Ederson would have only papered over the tactical flaws. We've seen against both Fulham and Burnley recently that using just a midfield double pivot in the centre in that 5-2-3 defensive shape and not having one of the interior forwards dropping or shifting infield to support them, or the wide centre-backs being aggressive with their man-to-man pressing and following opposition advanced midfielders high up into the midfield line, frequently leads to the opposition having a spare man in the centre. Baleba, Ederson and even Prime Kante are not going to be able to consistently stop this from occurring and being exploited throughout the course of a full season, particularly in matches against elite level opponents. Yes, of course, they would have certainly improved us, but the tactical flaws are still the main issue, regardless of how athletic, quick and physically dominant the players in the midfield double pivot are. The notion that Amorim's system is just set up to require such profiles is not even true, as towards the end of his Sporting tenure, when Sporting were at their best, rather than a more limited, destructive ball winner such as Ugarte, Amorim was using Morten Schulman and Morita in central midfield, neither of whom are the type of central midfielders who you'd profile as having high levels of acceleration, recovery speed or physicality. And so the notion that this system has been specifically designed around the use of a Baleba or Ederson type of player is only true because the system is being exposed tactically in the Premier League due to the greater tactical IQ of opposition coaches and the greater technical quality, physicality, speed and intensity of opposition players, which enables the opposition to exploit this space that the system concedes far too frequently. When I suggested the likes of Diego Moreira, Teo and Dwight McNeil, I was repeatedly told how we don't need a left wing back because we had Dorgu and Diego Leon, yet it was surely obvious even at that point that Dorgu wasn't going to be playing every single minute, and from watching him in Paraguay and in pre-season, that Diego Leon was clearly not ready for Premier League football. But now Dalot, the main scapegoat, is playing there, and to be fair is actually playing quite well given the circumstances, creating the goal for Mbeumo against Burnley, and overall he's definitely around the same level end product wise as Dorgu is when he plays there. Once we signed Cunha, we should have either gone and got Ederson or got two cheaper alternatives such as a Mbeumo or Lamine Camara, but the dopamine of signing a Premier League player who people knew and saw that he had a big number like 20 next to his name in the goal-scoring list was too much to think clearly and logically, and so we ended up spending the majority of the summer negotiating that deal and still managed to overpay by about 20 million, giving Brentford exactly what they wanted at the start of the summer. We could have also sold Garnacho in January, likely for more than what we sold him to Chelsea for in the end. Napoli and Chelsea were talking about 50 to 60 million in January. Whilst at that point, Cunha hadn't signed his new deal and had an active release clause of about £48 million, which I'm not 100% sure if it was only available in the summer, but even still we could have got him for just over £50 million, saving £10 million on that deal and not having to pay the £62 million release clause, making an extra £10 million on Garnacho as well, meaning that we've lost £20 million or around that amount just from our indecisiveness. We've signed Sesko, who would be ideal from crossing situations, yet for some reason we've not gone and brought in a left wing back who can consistently deliver elite level crosses from both deep positions and closer to the byline. Dogu's crossing and end product in general is no better than Dalot's. Dalot put in a great left-footed cross against Burnley and created Mbeumo's goal with a cut back into the perfect area, but even he's not good enough there. Yet even still, that will get overlooked, and the numerous times that Dogu on his stronger left foot either hits a first centre-back or overhits a cross conveniently gets disregarded, whilst any slight mistake that Dalot makes is used as evidence for why he's not good enough for about the next 3 months. My other issue with the Mbeumo signing was that if Amorim does end up leaving, how do Mbeumo and Ahmad feature in the same 11 if we aren't playing a 3-4-3? I'm already starting to see people criticise Ahmad, making him the scapegoat to deflect from the manager, just as they've been doing recently with Manu and done before with Garnacho and Rashford, McTominay before that, going all the way back to Ronaldo and Pogba. We've gotten rid of all the problem players, the academy players who apparently aren't good enough, but now look at the situation. McTominay's been nominated for the Ballon d'Or, Elanga's now at a rival club after making a £55 million move, Rashford's ended up at Barcelona, we've lost Oyedele and James Garner for peanuts, both of whom now look like they could have been pretty useful squad players for us right now, better than someone like Toby Collier, especially Oyedele, who's now at Strasbourg, showing how highly he's rated. Alvaro Fernandez couldn't get a game without a left back in the squad, and now he's ended up at Real Madrid 18 months later. We nearly sold Manu as well this summer. I mean, Manager FC clearly didn't learn the lesson that we had with Ten Hag and Ahmad, because I can't see how Manu has a future if Amorim is going to stay long term. And the irony is, people still have the audacity to blame player power and talk about these players like we haven't completely gutted the open heart surgery squad with Oli, with some of those players proving the fans wrong about their quality. Meanwhile, we've gone from 3rd to 8th to finishing in 15th, averaging around a point a game with the new manager, and now even in the following season, I'm hearing the same old vague cliches that Manager FC bring out every time they need to defend whoever the Manchester United manager happens to be that they've chosen is the next Fergie, the next Messiah, despite not having mentioned his name prior to him getting appointed, whilst not being able to make a tactical argument for why we must play in this very specific way, whilst constantly telling us that it's not the tactics, it's simply the players. Or if it's the players and not the system that's the issue, wouldn't it make more sense to just change the bloody system to one that suited the players? All these arguments contradict each other. Tacticos overrate tactics, but we have to play in this very specific system, no other system we can't change, even if it means being out of the Champions League for the next few seasons and selling all of our best homegrown players. So let me know what you think of my analysis in the comment section below, and if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. You can use code Atlantis at checkout for a discount, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comment section below.